tonight is Dan Coelho, behind the wheel of the Red Rabbit, 78 Dodge, 540 kV, and as we've been mentioning on various shows, Coelho in Portuguese means rabbit.
Well, this rabbit really runs good.
That rabbit may have outrun the fox and the hound.
And the pony, because I believe he has gone to the lead with that truck.
He is just a superb competitor, isn't he? I mean, you talk about a fellow that's got the equipment and the know-how behind the wheel, and obviously someone that studies what goes on before him.
Well, Dan Coelho is involved in this sport in all aspects of it. Not only does he have 2 pulling trucks, he has a pair of weight transfer machines or sleds. He also promotes a number of pulls here in California. And he's going to go back-to-back. His other truck will be running next.
Here he comes again, Mike, and kind of like what Chet Longacre did, he slides a little bit, but seems to hit the pedal a little bit sooner.
He comes into it a little harder, and the truck is hooked very good right off the starting line. Dan's really working it down the track. The big Keith Black motor is doing everything he could ask of it. He goes to the lead with a fine pull on the Red Rabbit.
The Red Rabbit, 159 feet, 7 3/4 inches. 159, 7 3/4. Dan Coelho out of Turlock, California, has inched his way now into second place.
Well, from our vantage point, we're looking across track at an angle, and there's a shot of his red truck and his yellow truck. It looked like he could have taken the lead, and these guys are just really nipping it at Dave Ribeiro. Ribeiro's got to be, got to be worried about it out in the pit area. There's nothing he can do now. He made his best hook. It's held up for quite a while. Let's see if it'll last the rest of the evening.
Dave Ribeiro, one-trick pony. He has the lead. Coelho has come close in Red Rabbit, and now will try to eclipse what Ribeiro did in Wild Hare.
And I think this is good that he's going to run these trucks back-to-back, even though he has not had any time to do any changing on this Wild Hare truck. He can change his driving strategy a little bit. It gives him just enough momentum to know what these two trucks do, what this one will do a little bit better than the red truck. Lets him adjust his driving style. I think it could really help and may put him in the lead.
A little bit more horsepower with this truck. The Red Rabbit was a 540 kV. This is a 557. Is there that much of a difference? It doesn't sound like a whole bunch.
There's not a whole lot of difference to it, but this is his original modified truck. His red truck was a super stock for a long time and then converted over to a modified. He bought this truck to build a modified truck out of.
There you see him hooking on, and as we've mentioned, 2 hooks, Mike, 1 for real and 1 just for safety.
1 safety, 6 inches lower. And Dan Coelho runs Danco Custom Trailers in Turlock, California. They build truck semi-trailers, and they also build truck bodies. And he's got a couple of fine trucks. Let's see if he can do it. Really going to have to do something hard.
Boy, I'll tell you what, it's called the Wild Hare. That's splitting hairs. He may have taken the lead, but again, from our vantage point, looking at it on the angle, we've got to wait for these guys to measure it.
It is so close, and the trucks almost ran identical. I think he drove them alike, and I think they hooked just the same tonight.
Coelho waving the rabbit out of the cab, obviously pleased with his performance tonight.
He may mash the throttle, and he does get on the throttle a little bit earlier on this truck than he did the red truck, and I think he did that because he may have a little more horsepower in this truck. When he calls for it, he knows it's there. He's got very good ground speed. The little white flag in the lower part of your screen is marking the lead mark. That's just kind of a visual aid to keep you an idea of where the leading mark is, and he is very close to that.
Wild Hare, Dan Coelho out of Turlock, California, 158 feet, 6.5 inches. Not quite good enough as what Red Rabbit did, but Coelho still in the money in second place with Red Rabbit. Well, there is one of the powers behind the performance tonight. That's Doug Hansen. He is what they call the event coordinator for the United States Hot Rod Association. Mike Galloway had a chance to talk with him before things got underway tonight.
Doug Hansen, technical director for the United States Hot Rod Association. Doug, for each and every pull, you hold a meeting. What do you discuss with the drivers?
We discuss the format of the show, exactly how the show is going to run. We talk about safety, making sure that everyone knows where they belong during the show so that they're not on the track or anywhere where they could possibly get hurt. Make sure everyone understands the rules of the show and any participation or problems that could happen in the contest. They know any extenuating circumstances.
Do you and your sled operator discuss what you're going to do, how you're going to run the sled?
Every sled can be set by weight or by gears, as you well know, and it depends on the track. Some tracks are harder and softer. We don't want to put on a bad show where the sled is stopping at 10 feet, but we don't want everyone to go out the door either. So the sled operator has a real important job. I basically trust him most of the time. But we decide what gear and what weight should be put in the sled, hoping that we have the most optimal show for the crowd.
Here's a young man that's got a lot resting on his shoulders tonight. Doug Hansen, Tech Director for the United States Hot Rod Association.
And a nice shot of the Oakland Coliseum Arena here in Oakland, California. Ken Brew and Mike Galloway, and here comes the judge, Ted Duncan from Hollister, California. We saw the prosecutor earlier. This was the forerunner to the prosecutor, a 59 Chevy, 508 under and through the hood.
Well, there's probably a lot of pullers that won't recognize the name Ted Duncan because he's known as Pappy, as you can see on the door. And Pappy is a very, very enjoyable person to be around. Got a good hooking truck, a pair of good hooking trucks. As we mentioned earlier, when this group come to the bull, they come to win, but they also come to enjoy themselves.
They must like the law. One truck called the prosecutor, this one called Here Comes the Judge.
They may be familiar with it.
From Hollister, here comes Pappy. Coelho wrote the book, Pappy read it. Almost identical strategy to what Dan Coelho tried with Red Rabbit and Wild Hare. Coast and then dial it in at about 50 feet.
Pappy had a little problem as he went down the track, and it took footages off of his pull. It hurt him a lot more than you'd imagine as the truck bounced when it went down the track. We'll take a look at it. You notice that about the 100-foot mark, it's going to get into a bounce mode, and that's really taken away from the traction. It takes away from the footages. Let's watch him. He's got a good hook right here, but you see the truck beginning to bounce up and down. On the end, you see the front tires almost coming off the ground. Need the front end glued in a little better. I think Pappy needs to take some weight off the truck and hang it out on the nose and really get that front end to bite him.
Well, here's the final results in the modified truck pull. Coming in third with 158.11 is the Rough Rider, Jess Alarcon from Dos Palos. Then Dan Coelho and the Red Rabbit finishing second. And the winner and still champion here in Oakland, California, is the man in the middle between Mike Galloway and myself, Dave Ribeiro. Congratulations, Dave.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about the run tonight. We were commenting that it looked like you were just dialed in front to back and got on the track at a good time before it really got torn up.
Yeah, the track was in excellent condition when we get out because we were the fourth puller, and we kind of took a chance. We might have ran a little bit more gear than we should have, but the motor carried it, and it looks like it ended up being a good pull.
Before you got into it, you laid on the line for a little bit. This is kind of a driving technique for you, isn't it? You do this a lot?
Yeah, I like to watch the oil pressure, make sure everything's right. I have enough heat in the engine, at least in the heads. And I want to make sure that I don't bang the clutch too much and blow the tires out of the ground. I found out that since we went to the larger motor, they're not as forgiving as the smaller engines.
When you made the hook, you early, as you mentioned, did you think it would stand up?
No, because it got so close. I think it was down just to about 5 or 6 inches.
It got real close, but you did a great job. It's a championship pull. We're very proud of you, Dave.
Thank you.
Dave, congratulations.
Thank you.
The Truck Pull Championship Series will continue from Oakland in just a second.